Recently, the FDA sent out warning letters to the manufacturers of natural desiccated thyroid, including medications like Armour Thyroid and NP Thyroid. This letter stated that these medications are technically illegal to sell now without proper approval. They've given these companies 12 months to comply or shut down production. This is definitely a power play by the FDA, which has long been against the use of natural desiccated thyroid medications, most likely in an effort to push people toward synthetic alternatives like levothyroxine and Thyroid. This means that NDT could theoretically disappear from the pharmacy shelves in as little as 12 months, or even sooner if manufacturers decide not to fight it. If you are one of the hundreds of thousands of thyroid medications who rely on NDT for your symptom management, this is definitely concerning. But I'm here to tell you that you do not have to panic. Here's why. Reason number one, this isn't law, at least not yet. It's what's called an FDA enforcement action, not a ban. What the FDA is really trying to do here is reclassify NDT as a biologic compound in an effort to better regulate and control it. This reclassification would require that pharmaceutical companies who want to sell it apply for a biologics license application. This would ultimately cost a lot of time and a lot of money because it's not easy to get this license. The fear is that during this process, thyroid patients would lose access to NDT. And perhaps the even greater fear is that NDT manufacturers wouldn't apply for the license at all, and in effect, NDT would be removed indefinitely. Fortunately, you do not have to worry about this problem, because the FDA has come out recently and has stated that they will not limit access to NDT medications during this application process. They're doing this to allow time for some studies to come out and prove that NDT is both safe and effective, which we'll touch on in just a second. The reality is that even though there is a non-zero chance that you may have limited access or no access to your NDT medication, I think the probability of this happening is not very likely. And this brings us to point number two, which is there is a lot of money at stake. If you look at a list of prescription medications that are filled each year, you will consistently see levothyroxine in the top 3 or number 4 spot. And it's usually behind other commonly prescribed medications like high blood pressure medication and cholesterol lowering medication. For perspective, there's around 80 to 100 million prescriptions of levothyroxine filled each year. And this number is getting bigger, not smaller. And yes, I understand we are not talking about levothyroxine today. We're talking about Armour Thyroid. But the point is that this is a big market cap. Of the total number of thyroid patients who take thyroid medication, about 20% or so are taking NDT medications like Armour Thyroid or NP Thyroid. So even though the percentage of the whole is much smaller, we're still talking about tens of millions of prescriptions filled each year for these medications. This means there is a lot of incentive and a lot of money for the manufacturers of these medications to continue to provide and create their product. For this reason, you may not have to do anything at all, but let them fight the fight. But point number 3 is also important, and that is the community is fighting back. In fact, there's been a lot of pushback from the thyroid community, and this has resulted in a statement from the head of the FDA. Some people view this as the FDA walking back their decision, but that's not quite the truth. What he said is this: the FDA is committed to pursuing the first ever approval of desiccated thyroid extract pending the results of ongoing clinical trials. In the meantime, we will ensure access for all Americans. So I wouldn't say this is a walkback per se, but what this does mean is that your voice matters. But let's assume the worst case scenario for just a second, that all forms of NDT are banned and pulled off the market forever. Even in this nightmare scenario, you still do not have to worry. Why? Because you can recreate the NDT effect using over-the-counter supplements that build upon your base of thyroid medication, including whether or not you're taking levothyroxine or Thyroid. And this is something that most of you should be doing anyway, because not only will it help you feel better, it also sets you up for success in case something like this happens again in the future. If you want to recreate the benefits of NDT, then you have to understand what makes it so special. Many thyroid patients believe that what makes NDT work so well is the T4 and T3 content, including how and where it's sourced. And yes, that is part of the equation, but it's not the full story. Instead, it's the synergy of multiple ingredients that all stack together and all compound on themselves. This list includes the T4 content, the T3 content, the T2 content, the thyroid-specific cofactors and enzymes that are included in this medication, and trace minerals like iodine, zinc, selenium, and copper also found in thyroid gland powder. Because Armour Thyroid consists of ground up thyroid gland powder from pigs, you get all of these ingredients every time you take a dose. And it's the combination of everything together that makes it work so well. It's not due to any particular or any single ingredient. By the way, some thyroid patients wrongly believe that the reason it works so well is because of its sourcing, which is why they refer to it as natural. But this is not what matters. I hate to break it to you, but the T4 and T3 content found in Armour Thyroid are the exact same as the T4 content found in levothyroxine and the T3 content found in liothyronine. The only difference between these medications is their sourcing. One is natural and one is synthetic. Understanding this and all the other things I've just discussed is critical, because if you understand them, then what you can do is piecemeal together your own version of NDT using other individual ingredients. And it turns out that most of these ingredients are available over the counter, which means you have direct access to them. Recreating this is what I call the DIY NDT protocol. And it's something that you can do starting right now. You don't need anything extra to do it. Since most of you are probably taking levothyroxine, what we can do is use that as the base and then build upon it by adding extra ingredients one by one. Here's what that looks like. Start with your base of levothyroxine. This provides you with your source of T4, which is also found in NDT. There are lots of thyroid medications that provide T4. One of my favorites, by the way, if you must use a synthetic version, is tyrosine. But you can also do this with levothyroxine, Synthroid, or any of the other T4 only medications. From here, you need to add on T3 thyroid hormone because that's what's contained in Armour Thyroid. You can do this by getting a prescription for Cytomel or liothyronine. The ratio you're looking for here is about 80% of your total dose as T4 and about 20% of the remainder as T3. This is the ratio that is found in each grain of NDT medication like Armour Thyroid or NP Thyroid. These first two steps will give you the correct ratio of T4 to T3 that mimics that found in NDT. The next step is to add T2 thyroid hormone in a dose of about 100 to 200 micrograms per day. T2 is the only thyroid hormone available over the counter, which means you do not need a prescription for this hormone. The T2 content of NDT is unknown, but it's estimated to probably be around 5 micrograms. So this actually gets you a lot more and you'll probably experience better results. Next, and this part is key, you must add on a thyroid glandular or thyroid gland powder from a cow to your existing medication. This powder is very similar to the ingredient profile found in NDT medications like Armour Thyroid. The main difference, of course, being that the T4 and T3 content are not standardized and that one comes from a pig and one comes from a cow. But by taking this thyroid gland powder, you get all of the cofactors, enzymes, and trace minerals that we previously discussed. Finally, if necessary, your last step is to add on some of those extra trace minerals that we talked about, like copper, zinc, selenium, and iodine. You can get most of these by taking any run-of-the-mill thyroid support supplement, as they almost always contain these ingredients. If you add all of these ingredients to your base of levothyroxine, you have essentially just recreated NDT medications like Armour Thyroid. But what makes this even better than Armour Thyroid is the fact that you can individually adjust or titrate any of the ingredients we just talked about. If you need more T3, for instance, you can just up your dose. If you need less T4, you can just drop your dose of levothyroxine, and everything else stays the same. This is not what happens if you adjust your dose of Armour Thyroid. Everything goes up or everything goes down. The bottom line is that even though this news is very concerning, you do not have to panic. In the end, there is a much greater chance that NDT will continue to be available for thyroid patients than the alternative, which is it will be removed from the shelves. But let me be clear in saying that there is still a non-zero chance that something bad happens to your access to NDT. If you're worried about this or just don't like the idea of being reliant on a medication that is so up in the air, then I would recommend that you recreate your own NDT using the instructions I just mentioned. And whatever you do, don't fall into the trap of thinking that NDT is the most or the only thyroid medication that will work for you. The truth is you can feel better on a number of different thyroid medications and a number of different protocols as long as you do some trial and error. If you don't feel well on your current protocol, make sure you check out this video next because it will walk you through how to optimize whatever thyroid medication you're currently taking.